from a hound's perspective. Rusty Rooster and Renny Hen. Thank you for joining Book Drive. A Fallen Whispers trademark copyright by Kimberly, 2003. Short story ebook 10 by Kimberly. Copyright 2002, February 6. Presented by Dandelion Breeze Audio, Book Drive Podcast. Planting seed while you read. Trademark copyright 2020 by Kimberly Ann. Story content. Renny Hen slept soundly most nights, but this night her eyes fluttered open more times than she could count, and it was all Rusty Rooster's fault, keeping her awake with concerns and worry. Often he talked of sleeping over in the pasture and fields where they roamed in the daytime, feeding on worms, grain, grasses, and insects. But this was too much. She was going to tell him something about it tomorrow, which was already here, though the sky was still dark, and the morning light had not yet come, for at the break of day, Rusty Rooster would always let out a cackling crow. But not this morning, for he had not come home when yester's eve had brought the sun down low to set upon the horizon, and the darkness of night was bringing daylight to its day's end. Rusty was nowhere to be found in the chicken coop, and tomorrow morning's cows would be late for their milking by Farmer Tom and his boy Dell. Oh, but Renny Hen was going to make sure Rusty heard about it, the ruckus he had caused in the hen house, in the milk barn, and all over the farm, even though he was not anywhere in sight. As Renny sat awake in the dark for the umpteenth time, mulling over what she would say to Rusty Rooster once she caught glimpse of him again, there was a sudden noise just outside the chicken coop door. A noisy rustling and scraping. Renny became quite alert for fear the fox or coyote had come sniffing around, trying to dig under the doorpost with hopes to sneak in and catch a chicken for their supper. Yeah, that's right. Supper. Round here on the farm we have breakfast, dinner, and supper. People who are on the go, going, and going, are the ones who say they have lunch. On the farm we make a dinner meal and enjoy its hearty taste and filling of our stomachs. Well, back to Renny and that there hen house. As me, that is Bud, the old hound, as me and Dell, Farmer Tom's boy, came silently into the barnyard, we heard the awfulest scraping and scratching going on, and it seemed to be coming from the chicken coop. So we picked up our pace and hurried along in the dark, trying to sneak up on whatever was in the barnyard this time of night, or an early riser. One who milks cows might say this time of day, and would say, what on earth is making such a racket? So we squeezed in tight together, walking alongside one another as Farmer Tom's boy had his hands full holding on to Rusty Rooster. The nearer we got to the hen house, we knew that was where the noise was coming from. The hens inside were clucking nervous-like, and Farmer Tom's boy was squeezing Rusty so tight from his wriggling around and trying to flap his wings to get away that he let out a squall clack and flew right out of his hands and right into the wild coyote that was making all the scratching noises. It startled the wild coyote so much that a shriek yelp came from him, and seeing Farmer Tom's boy's beam of light glare into his eyesight, he tucked tail and ran toward the wood before Dell could get a gunshot into the air to spook him off. By this time all the chicks, hens, and Rusty were clacking and cackling, feathers flittering and scurrying across the dirt floor, making a dust bowl so thick it blew out the henhouse gate door when Farmer Tom's boy opened it up to set Rusty inside. After he finally caught him again, running scared in the barnyard. "Some rooster he is," said I, the hound, to myself. "He struts around this barnyard in the daytime like he's the only one who never gets scared, and tonight I've watched him over and over and over show his fear. Well, I don't like to make fun of anyone, 'cause I've had my share of being scared at times, but it sure does make me realize we all are just alike when it comes to feelings and emotions. We all have them. We just all show them at different times and in different ways." I recall the night I was so feared of myself that I took to running, and it was 3 whole weeks before I made it back to the farm. I ran away so far. The cows and sheep said Farmer Tom's boy looked and looked for me, and then when he couldn't find me, Farmer Tom himself took out on a few trips to search for me, and neither one of them found me. But I finally talked to a few strangers I now call my friend, for they steered me in the direction of home when I too was lost, and now I've got friends all over the county. It's funny how far an old hound can travel in one night. And then you add getting lost and all the walking you do, then that takes you further and further from home till you just have to stop and ask, "Please help me." And there is one who will. Now, I'll tell you about the night and those days that came after and all that time I was lost. Oh, to think of it now is a relief, but while it was happening, it was plain old being scared. I took to the fields, kinda like Rusty Rooster, on a day that was as pretty as the sky is blue on a clear, clear day. Dell had went to town that day and told me to stay put. But did I? Oh, no. I just had to be going a-hunting on my own, sniffing and searching, and the day was so beautiful. It was a cool April spring day, and after being in the barn a good bit of the winter months when it was cold, in order to keep warm, I was ready for an outing in the woods and the fresh green grass fields and the wildflowers and all the critters coming out to smell the fresh spring rain, and the blossoms on all the trees, plants, and things. So without another thought to what Farmer Tom's boy had said to me, I went sauntering about. That is, I was intending on taking a short walk and being right back, and Dell would never know that I left the barnyard. Well, that's when it happened. I had my nose to the ground, and a fresh scent tickled my nose, and I just couldn't give it up. I had to follow it to see where it would go and what it was that I was sniffing. It seemed a new smell to me, though now I know it was just spring rain reviving an old scent I should have recognized. Tantalizing my senses, I took off a-running fast as ever I ran, and not a thought came to mind that I was doing wrong. By the time I reached the creek, the smell had gone. I'd lost it, and of course I thought it was me, and I wasn't going to let myself be outdid, so I kept a-sniffing till I came upon another new scent, and this one I recognized. It was a deer. Oh, but that did not matter to me, even though I've been taught not to chase deer, because they take a dog or an old hound like me far, far from home, and they don't stop, and we old hounds, we don't know any better sometimes than to not stop, and that's where my troubles began. Oh, I blame it on that first scent I smelled, a rabbit. They go a-hoppin' all over, and they're the hardest trackin' I've ever had to do, and like that day, I lost the rabbit's scent, and that's what caused me to find the deer's and take off after it. So now where was I? Oh yeah, I was a-runnin' hard after this here deer, and I was a-smellin', and it was fresh, fresh, fresh. I was hot on his trail. So close, in fact, that I caught up to him, and as I came through the brush he heard the rustling, and as deer are very skittish, he jumped and ran, flagging that tail of his at me, and I just kept on going, knowing I was going to catch him. The only thing is, I always tend to forget from one time to the next how much faster deer are than me, this here old hound, and their legs are much longer, and they can jump much higher, and I have to crawl on my belly sometimes just to get through the thicket in the fence row, and all a deer need do is jump and they're over it. I get cut up and scratched from all the briar and thorns, and yes, that is what doing the wrong thing gets you. It gives you briars, thorns, and thistle sticks. So it wasn't long till I tired out, but I kept a-chasing that deer for 3 whole days. And then when I decided to go back to the farm, I realized I didn't know where the farm was. I know I've got a good sniffer on me to find scents and smells that take me places, but this time I'd gone too far, and all the scents I smelled were not my home. I was hungry too, so in my smelling around I came upon a little house in town, but they weren't keen on having an old muddy, dirty, stinky hound at their door begging for food, so they shooed me off. And hanging my head low, I went on down the road, till I came to another place that had some good smells coming from it. And I found a pile of peeled potato skins, something that seemed like hamburger meat, but it kinda had a bad smell to it. But for me, an old hound is okay to eat, unlike you human folk who have to throw out such kind of meat or it'll make you sick. As I was a-eatin', there came a long bang, and a screen door slammed shut and bounced back open, and there stood a hefty man in a white apron, but it was brown and dirty. He yelled at me and said, "Get on out of here." So I had to run off, quick like, and didn't even get one bite of the food I'd found. Still can't figure out why he wouldn't let me eat if all he was doing was throwing it out on the ground. Of which the man in the apron said I turned over his trash can. What's a trash can? Well, by this time I had made my way around the same town for a week and was getting nowhere. I hadn't found how to go home, I hadn't found anything to eat, and finally a little stranger came out to meet me in the street one day and asked in the tiniest voice I've ever heard. Almost missed it. The little fellow spoke so soft, but he said, Mr. Hound, are you lost?" I immediately turned and found myself peering down at a teensy teensy weensy little mouse, dressed in a tuxedo. He had a top hat on, carried a cane, and even tinier little bow tie. I cleared my throat and said, "Yes, sir, I am." He casually asked, "Where are you needing to go?" I said, "I come from over yonder by the big pond." Yes, that's what I said. He turned his head for a moment in thought and said, "Oh, you must mean down by the large sycamore tree patch that is 2 counties over from this one." I said, "Yes, that's it. I recall there are gigantic sycamore trees there. I'd never have thought to mention." I asked him, "How'd you know that's where I meant if I'm that far from home?" The mouse only said, "Oh, we mice have miles of roots for our families to travel upon, for we go miles and miles if need be, though most often we stick close to where we find a good meal." With that I asked, "How do I get back there?" The mouse said, "If you come along with me, I'll take you straight away to my country mice relatives, and they are sure to point your nose in the right direction." So off the pair went, and as they were walking along the ditches and fence rows, the little mouse said, "I saw that man in the apron. He's the butcher of the town. I seen he ran you off, and you're looking a little pale and appear a little weak. If you'll stop off right over here, I can get you some supper, breakfast, dinner, whatever it is that you have not eaten since last, and you'll be fit to travel the distance you need to go to get home once the country mice show your nose the way." With that, I tell you, I almost howled, but I was just too poorly weak to even whimper. So out back of the town fire station is a dumpster, and near that dumpster is a bowl filled with fresh, cool water, and lots of it. A tray of scraps and dog food, even some cat food, and, well, the little mouse, he even found him some cheese, and we feasted there till our tummies were full, and then off to the country we traveled to meet the town mouse's relatives. When we arrived, there was much joy and shouting, for country mice and town mice don't often get to see one another, for the travel is far. And to think that this informidable town mouse had taken out of his time of day and his efforts and cost to assist me, an old hound, on how to make my way back home. Don't tell anyone, but it brought tears to my eyes, and just thinking of it now and telling you about it, I still get those same tears. For he saved me from ruin, and I can never repay him for anything he done for me, except to pass on the goodness he showed to me, and learn to listen to Dell next time he tells me to stay put on the farm. Life out there in the world, I will admit, it glitters and shines, it twinkles and glistens, but the real glitter and shine are in knowing you are home. So next time someone asks, you can say, "Yes, I know I'm home," because I believe home is better than all the worth that one can find in that there world out there. Even the deer I chased that led me away returned home, saying home is the best place to be, and that deer and I, well now, we're best friends. Never will I run after and chase him away again, because that would be bad for us both, being away from home. But the best news of all, as the country mice were leading me down the trails that would take me to where my senses came back to me of when I knew I was home, there in the road in front of me was Farmer Tom, Dell his boy, and even Sally his wife. They'd all come out to see if I'd come home yet, and that was the greatest day ever. I'm home. As for Rusty Rooster and Renny Hen, well, that's yet another story. But to your liking, all the chicks, hens, and farm animals were so spooked and scared that night when Rusty flew into the side of the coyote, and the flashing beam of light from Farmer Tom's boy's flashlight glared in his eyes, that he hasn't been back since. And all the farm animals made a pact not to bring that night up ever again, because some things are just better left in the past in order for our future to spring up bright and wonderful. And as for me, the old hound, well, I'm training up a new little youngster hound, so he knows the right path, and maybe he'll not make the same mistakes I've made. That's how we learn, by mistakes, but if we listen to others who we trust and respect and then learn from what we listen to, well, then we won't, you won't, I won't make as many mistakes or the same mistakes, and life will be so much better than if you go off half thinking and knowing nothing, saying whatever. That's how you look at life, your road is most likely going to have a lot of bumps, drops, and falls. It's a hard way to learn after the hurt has already come to you. So take an old hound's advice and listen to those who know better, and that's most often your parent, grandparents, siblings, the people who not only say they love you, but they show you they love you in a nurturing way that makes life better. Even when something wrong happens, within you there is a knowing of peace and calm and, above all, love. Take care now. I gotta get back to watching the farmyard for intruders like Red Fox, Wild Coyote, or misfits like the neighbor hound that only shows up to scare the chickens. The end. This has been A Fallen Whispers trademark copyright 2003 by Kimberly. Short story ebook 10 by Kimberly. Copyright 2002 February 6th. Rusty Rooster and Renny Hen. A Hound's Perspective. See you next time on Book Drive. Planting seed while you read. A Dandelion Breeze audio presentation, trademark copyright 2020 by Kimberly Hen.